Hello, welcome to Mending Pieces. I'm JuleeKay. Today's episode is with Richard Hickman about blended families and how they come together and how sometimes you can't be there in the beginning, but where you step in and go from there is what matters. I know that you're a blended family
hmm
and they can be kind of difficult. What are some of the challenges you've had with a blended family?
I think for me, it's been mostly that I've missed so much of their lives. I struggled with that, especially in the beginning, because it was just like, I miss so much, and there's so much I don't know about you kiddos. And so it was a challenge for me in the beginning to try and make sure that I just was not wasting any time, because I was like, I'm already way behind on time with these kids. It's also been a challenge to just get to know their personalities. It's kind of interesting now that we have had a baby together and I know his personality as he's growing up, and it's a little bit easier than some of the teenage girls that I just kind of jumped in as dad, and it was like I had no idea what I was jumping into. I kind of had to learn very quickly. That was definitely a challenge. I think the other challenge for me as well is I read a lot of books about how to be a good stepdad when we were getting married. Right before I was about to ask Marianne to marry me, I was like, okay, if I'm really going to do this and I'm going to be a stepdad, I need to really figure out what to do here. So I bought like probably 6 or 7 books and read them all. And it was interesting. All of these books all said, don't try to be their dad. Be their friend and be their coach, but don't be their dad. And I was like, this is bullcrap. No, I'm like, if these kids are going to call me dad, I'm going to be dad. So it was kind of interesting to figure out that there's not really a lot of resources out there for people who want to be dad in that stepdad role.
Yeah, being a dad, I mean, you can't learn that from a
No, you can't. But it was interesting that there wasn't anything out there of people who are just like, oh, if you're going to be stepdad and here's some things to look out for and some things to think about and stuff like that. I learned some good things from those books. Like one in particular I would have never thought of is that, like, it's kind of interesting that I I could technically go to jail for neglecting these children, right? But I have no legal rights over these kids. If I showed up at the hospital and tried to get some care done, I have no legal rights as a father or a guardian or anything like that because their dad and their mom do, but I don't. It's that kind of interesting dynamic there that's weird with the legal system that I can be held liable for them, but at the same time, I have no rights to even make medical decisions on their behalf. It's kind of a weird spot to be in. So, one of the things I learned from the book was that you can create these medical release forms that do give me that power that their dad signed. Because, I mean, he's still a decent dude. And so, I mean, of course, he signed that because it's like, who wouldn't? Like this guy who's going to be with your kids all the time, he needs to be able to take your kids to the hospital in the case of an emergency.
Oh, yeah, because you
So,
never know when
yeah,
something's gonna happen, when they're gonna be outside and step off the porch and twist
exactly.
their ankle and fall, and it's
Exactly.
like yeah, so that makes him a good man
Oh,
too,
yeah.
knowing that his kid's best interest is what
Yep,
matters,
exactly.
and I know from my experience of having a stepfather involved with my kids, it's not always great.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful when a child does get a stepdad that steps up and is like a real dad.
Yeah, I definitely do my best to try and be that for these kids, and they've
Well,
been great.
hi, I'm interrupting my own show to let you know about a book I wrote about surviving suicide. You can get that by going to juliekay.com/free gift. Take the time, download it. You might need it immediately, or you may know somebody who does. juliekay.com/free gift. And now back to the episode.
I've loved every second of it. I've never and I know that I am also very blessed and fortunate because I've never dealt with, "You're not my real dad." I've never had that said to me. I've never had any of those kinds of those kids are great.
Oh, I've seen you with
So,
them. You guys are
yeah.
wonderful. It's
Oh,
awesome.
thank you.
I thought they were all yours, actually. Yeah, so it's amazing. I mean, I love it when I see a good man step up and be a stepdad because it is a tough role.
Mhm. But, it has its challenges at times for sure. It was different going from bachelor life to dad of 5 overnight. It was just things that I'm just never even thought about before, like, "Okay, it's time to go." Like, before, it was, Okay, it's time to go. Get up, put my phone in my pocket, grab my keys, and walk out the door. And now it takes 15 minutes to get out the door.
So talk
Stuff
vehicle.
like that. Yeah. And it's just interesting, those kinds of fun things where it's just like, it took me a little while to get used to that.
It's amazing. I don't know what else to ask you. You've already done such a great job. I see them interacting with you, and it's like you're not blended. You're one.
We try really hard to be like that. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, and tell me a little bit about you and your journey, how you came to be in this spot where you're wanting to help people that have suffered with decisions and thoughts of wanting to end their own life and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I'm a single mom of 4. At a very young age, my grandmother committed suicide. I was 12. And I didn't understand it. I just knew that I was angry, I was sad, and she was gone. And she was my hero. And as years went on, I got involved in things like drugs and doing things I shouldn't, and got in a very abusive relationship. I began suffering from some mental health issues and attempted suicide on multiple occasions because I thought that was the answer. I mean, my grandma, she was suffering through a lot of stuff and she ended it and it was over. So if it worked for her, maybe that would work for me. But I was lucky and I got found. God said no. He told me no. And it took me some time and I figured it out. My purpose here is to let people know that they're not alone and that they matter, and that committing suicide or attempting suicide is not the answer. You're taking a small situation and making it permanent. In this life, everything changes. Life changes all the time. Every moment there's a change. And if you just give it time and you just wait and do some footwork, make some calls, reach out, your situation can and will change.
Mm-hmm.
There is hope. And you don't have to do this thing alone. A lot of people, when they get ready to attempt suicide, for me, I told myself, nobody cares. I'm alone. And they would all be better off without me anyways. That was a lie because my kids, they still need me today. Even though they're adults, I'm constantly there for something, trying to help them through some kind of a situation that they're in. And if I weren't, where would they turn? You know, there's places they can turn, but there's nothing like having your mom. Life is full of trauma. We're all going to experience it, but suffering through it all is a choice. You don't have to suffer. Anything is possible. Life is full of many possibilities. And I just have a heart to help people because I don't want to see people give up on themselves. You know, it's painful because what happens is when somebody does give up on themselves and they do attempt suicide and they succeed, they leave a world of hurt behind them, their children, their parents, and friends, and they have to carry that. They can reach out. There's so many ways to do it.
I think that it's kind of interesting. I have never been around or close to somebody that has, at least that I'm aware of, that has dealt with those thoughts or even done that. No one that I'm close to has committed suicide. I think I'm probably a very rare person because most people you ask, hey, do you know someone who's committed suicide? Most people say yes, they know somebody. I can't think of somebody that I know of. There might have been one or two in high school, but they weren't people that I really knew. They were just random classmates, I guess, but I can't even think, was there someone? So the closest that I ever came to that kind of situation, I had someone that I was friends with in high school who called me and said, hey, I think I'm going to do this. And I didn't know what to do. I had no clue, right? And even if that happened now, if someone were to call me and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, I wouldn't know what to do other than shower them with love and support. What would you say is the best thing to do?
I would tell them, hey, I'm going to come over.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go over there and I would sit and talk with them. They were still feeling like they want to go ahead and do this. I'd say, you know what, let's reach out to a professional, somebody that you can talk to. Maybe there's some underlying issues. Let them know that what they're thinking or what they're feeling is normal. We're allowed to have our feelings, but we don't want to take action. I know with me, I had to get an anchor. And an anchor is someone that you do not want to disappoint, someone that you could make a commitment to and say, I promise I will not try and kill myself again. I will call you first. My daughter is my anchor. And I will call her if I ever had that thought again, or even if I didn't feel well on my medication. So even if I'm starting to feel a little shaky on my meds, I'll call her and say, hey, something's not feeling right. Because you could be on medication and that could be something that pushes you towards that as well, because they have the side effects. Beware, suicide is a side effect of this
Yeah.
medication. She is my anchor. I'm her anchor in all kinds of ways. So you got to realize that there are people out that love you. And when you know somebody does love you and somebody is there for you, that will help you to think twice about making that decision.
Helping them find an anchor.
You need an
Okay.
anchor, and then you might, a life coach, somebody you're working with on a regular basis to work through some of your traumas and your feelings. You build a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to them, and so, yeah. And then there's other different programs that do deal with it in the professional field of medicine. But we can't all afford that. We just can't.
Yeah, it can be expensive.
So sometimes we have to rely on friends, families, and coaches.
Okay. No, that's good to know. That's good. Good. I hope that I never have to incorporate that advice, but chances are I'll probably have to one day. But, which is really sad that we live in a world where people decide to make that choice. But yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Richard. It
Yeah.
was a joy spending this time with you and talking, and
For sure.
so amazing.
Yeah, for sure. You don't have to do that, right? We haven't even talked about what I do, and that's okay.
I should have
So
talked to you about what you do,
that's
because what you
okay.
do is amazing. But
Yeah.
for some reason, your kids popped in my
No,
head
and that's
because
great.
that's such an amazing
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and it's a great, that is a great conversation to have, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
So, you had all these great tips on being a single dad. Where can we find you to see how you're doing with this? And if you have any tips for any of us new fathers out here that are trying to blend a family?
Well, I don't in particular have any straight up resources for that, but if anyone wants to chat, I'm always open to it. You can find me on Instagram at Richard R. Hickman. Shoot me a DM. I'd be happy to chat with anybody.
Great. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
You can get my book at JuleeKay.com/free gift. And remember to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.